Building, creating and preserving assets hoping that they remain safe is not just good enough. Taking deliberate efforts to protecting it from harm, destruction and theft remains the true value of such an asset. My name is Henry Igwebike and you're welcome to Popular News on POV Nigeria.
That feeling, that's Bedkin.
In Nigeria, the NSCDC, the police force, and the military are tasked with the responsibility of securing lives and properties in the homeland. But how much protection can be achieved when out of an estimated 400,000 police officers in Nigeria, about 150,000 of them are strictly attached to VIPs, leaving the rest of us, over 200 million Nigerians, to protect themselves and their properties? This is the reason private guard companies, or PGCs as they are often called, are important to fill in the blank spaces when the need arises. Joining me virtually from Abuja to discuss the relevance and challenges faced by private guard companies in Nigeria is Safety A.M Jonathan, a safety and security management consultant and professional. Mr. Jonathan, you're welcome to Popular News on POV in Nigeria.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's my great pleasure and I'm happy to be here. And I hope our viewers too will have a whole lot.
I would love to start by asking, you will agree with me that there is a proliferation of private guard companies in Nigeria. My question now is, what does it really take to start up one?
For an average individual who really wants to start the business, both when you include both the cost of documentation and administrative cost, and also the cost of setting up an office, you should be looking at a minimum. You should be looking at a minimum of 10 million naira. A minimum of 10 million naira. This will cover. Anyway, depending on the area, depending on your location, but for let me say for a place like Abuja, where I reside, and maybe you're looking at setting up an office in an area like the Jabi axis, Gudu axis, and so on and so forth, where perhaps rent for office spaces are a bit cheaper. I think 10 million will help you as a startup, and in that 10 million, let's say about 4.5 million could be used for all form of operational document cost, while the other amount could cover for setting up an administrative offices, which include office space, computer desktop, printers, and what have you, and also maybe utility vans and so on at a very cheap rate, So with 10 million, I think you're good to go. So basically, that's just what it takes. It's quite expensive. It's not so much of a cheap business to go into. But at the long run, with good legislation, with good control, I think it's a good business to do.
There is no gainsaying that running a business in a climate like ours today is very challenging. What difficulties and problems do you go through as a PGC company in Nigeria?
Despite that they are so enormous, but there are fundamental challenges which I think it's really crippling which has already crippled into the private guards company business. Basically, I want to start with the act establishing the private guard company. I think there's a whole lot of lacuna. Maybe in the wisdom of those who drafted these regulations. They were trying to see how they could avoid complacencies or complications where there is a duplication of functions between the private guard company and the public security agencies like the Nigerian police, civil defense, and so on. But in the process, I think a whole lot of things wasn't properly dealt with. Like, for instance, there is a lacuna in some of the decisions taken. You know, in the regulations, it wasn't properly spelled when it has to do with remuneration. The act only states that the client should be able, or rather the company should be able to pay the security operative between 60-65% of what the client pays. It is not properly spelled out. It is not properly spelled out because the client can choose to pay anything. The client can choose to pay anything, and when there is no good, there's no proper yardstick for proper bargain with the client, and you don't want to go out of business, most security companies are forced to take anything, and by virtue of taking anything, when you work out what 60-65% entails to the guard, you realize that it's entirely a zero work done. It's nothing to write home about, because most of these guards end up living in a slave remuneration, which is not really encouraging. So the area of remuneration wasn't properly captured or wasn't properly dealt with in the act or in the regulation establishing the private guard company. Then if you also go through the act or through the regulations, you realize that there was a total expunge of private guard company going into media adverts to advertise their business. Is completely against the law for any private guard company to go into any form of advert, whether on TV, radio, or on newspapers. Which really, how do you sell a product that you don't tell people about? How do people get to know about a product they don't see, they don't know? You understand? So the advert space should have been made open, since the private guards company, their operations or their modus operandi is not entirely the same with that of our public security services like the police and maybe the army and so on and so forth. So there would have been need for PGC owners, private guard company owners, to be able to advertise, to tell about their company, to tell about their product, to tell about their services to a very large heterogeneous audience. They should have been that room. But for the act to completely expunge it and see it as being unlawful, I don't think it's really helping the PGC company to grow, and that's a major challenge. As well. Then there's a problem of this high rate of attrition among the guards. And why wouldn't they be running away? You see a guard come in today and leave tomorrow. You know, the remuneration is so poor. There's nothing attractive. There's no career development. It's a walk-out kind of a job. So it's more or less a kind of a part-time thing, a part-time kind of adventure. So basically, I think these are just some of the few problems that we have, or some of the few challenges that I could say that the private guard company encounter in the course of discharging their duties.
In a more organized country, hardly would you see trained military personnel and police officers serving as mere escorts for self-acclaimed individuals like what we see here in Nigeria. Don't you think that there is a duplication of responsibilities that should have been given to private guard companies in Nigeria?
Talking about duplication of duties, virtually all the law enforcement agencies they have duplicated functions. We've seen situations where the Nigerian police and the Nigerian army engage in brutal exchange of blows, fight, and sometimes it even leads to loss of life. So when it has to do with duplication of functions, it's not peculiar with the private guards company. But I think basically the private company could be said to be exceptional in this case, because our rules with regards to security is quite unlimited. It's more of a protection of lives, and it's more of protection of lives and property. So they are not actually engaged with more intelligent functions like the Nigerian police is engaged in, or the NSCDC, or the DSS, and so on and so forth. But when it has to do with duplication, the only angle I will look at it from is from the angle of let me say fiscal security, which is man guarding. I think basically the PGC or the private guard company should be solely responsible when it has to do with fiscal security, especially with regards to man guarding at residential areas, multinational companies, public facilities and installations, and so on and so forth. It should be entirely their role. But unfortunately, you see individuals recruiting the NSCDC officials to come and man their gate, the Nigerian police to come and man their gate, and these are functions that should be left for the private guards company. We are complaining that there is a dearth in manpower when it has to do with the police force and other law enforcement agency. Yet we allow individuals to take advantage of them, to do menial job that should ordinarily be left for the private guards company workers. So I think that's one aspect. Then the other aspect has to do with personnel security. When you talk about personnel security, I'm talking about bodyguards, or what we call BGs. I don't see any reason why a VIP personnel will be moving around with a police armed man walking around his village and all that. Is demeaning to the Nigerian police, or is demeaning to the NSCDC. These are jobs that private individuals could do with maybe light self-defense protective gadget. The essence of PG is just to pave way, create way, and create cover for you. There's nothing more. There's nothing more. You are not a suspect. You are not a criminal that you are scared of someone, except maybe in the context of the country we find ourselves. But abroad, generally, no police officer walks around with a VIP person. Even the entertainers over there, they go around with private bodyguards who are recruited from private guards company, and so on and so forth. So I think basically these are just the areas where I might say there are duplications of functions. Other than that, I don't think there's much duplications of functions between the private guards company operators or personnel and other law enforcement agencies.
In an effort by the NSCDC, I guess, to support the patronage of private guard companies like yours in Nigeria, the organization sealed the premises of Rees Continental Hotel in Abuja for not using the services of PGCs. Now, in 2019, the organization, that is the hotel, sued NSCDC and the Minister of Interior and won the case. Do you think the judgment goes against the fundamental ethics of efficient security management in the country?
The judgment was on June 8 in 2020, led by Justice Taiwo, where she challenged the propriety of the NSCDC and the Interior Ministry applying the provision of the PGC regulation in 2018. She ruled that the persons or corporate entity who employs more than one or two guards must not necessarily engage a private guard company as enshrined in the regulations of the PGC Act. By and large, I think the ruling is germane. If you ask me, the ruling is germane, because what do you expect people who want proficiency or individuals who want the best for their businesses to do? What the question is, what internal mechanisms have been put in place by the regulatory bodies of these PGCs, of the private guards company, talking about the Ministry of Interior and the civil defense? What internal mechanism have they put in place to make it attractive? Nothing. If there is nothing to make it attractive, if there's nothing to guarantee me that engaging this set of people will give me the best of service for the boost of my business, then why won't I go solo? So for me, I don't blame Rees Continental for engaging I think that was bold on their own part. They had to engage the NSCDC. Whatever the law, the law says, or whatever provision, if it is not for, it's law for man, not man for law. So there should be flexibility. You've not done enough, and you want to stop somebody to go to recruit his own men. You engage most of the security companies are quacks. Many of them are not even licensed, and they're not doing anything about it. They're not checkmating, they're not clamping down on all these people who are destroying the businesses. And you expect people with people who have invested millions in their businesses to go and recruit quacks to come and manage the security architecture of their businesses? It's not possible. It's not possible.
That feeling, that's Bedkin.
Thank you so very much, Safety A.M Jonathan, for allowing us your time. And to our viewers, I want to say a very big thank you for keeping it a date with us. Remember, you can share this content if you find it interesting. And also follow us on all our social media platforms at POV Nigeria, where we would keep bringing you news analysis below the threshold. My name is Henry Igwebike.